Welcome to my channel Limelight Leaks. Please share and subscribe and hit the bell icon for new updates. Sometimes people think I can do magic things and then it's really hard. Picture this: London's West End, 1964. The soft curtains had just closed on another sold-out show of My Fair Lady. Flowers filled Julie Andrews' dressing room. The air smelled like success. Then someone knocked hard. A studio worker came in with his head down, holding a telegram. Julie read it once. Then again her smile disappeared. The message: Warner Brothers had picked Audrey Hepburn to play Eliza Doolittle in the movie. The same part Julie had created, brought to life, made perfect. No reason, no warning. Just quiet then. Betrayal. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just put the telegram on her table and walked out into the night. For many years, Julie Andrews acted like a queen, always graceful but under the crown, and the beautiful singing voice was a woman quietly holding on to 7 betrayals, 7 names, 7 hurts she never talked about in public until now. These aren't small fights. They're stories of sabotage, pride, and wounds that never got better. The first name, the woman who took her crown without knowing it. Audrey Hepburn, the quiet thief of Broadway. They never fought in the newspapers. They never said mean things. But the tension between Julie Andrews and Audrey Hepburn was thick enough to cut with a fancy spoon. It wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious. But it stayed there like perfume in a locked dressing room there, even when no one talked about it. When Warner Brothers chose someone else instead of Julie for the part of Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady, it wasn't because she couldn't act. It was just Hollywood business. Audrey Hepburn was the bigger name, the face that would make money, and so they decided quietly and meanly what hurt most. Audrey never called, not a letter, not a phone call, not even a hello backstage at future events, just empty space sewn into every red carpet they shared after that. And in that quiet, Julie found her answer in private. She told close friends, "She's nice, but that part was never hers." The final insult: Audrey's singing was fake. Julie's voice, perfect in how clear, strong, and full of feeling it was, got left behind. The voice that made Eliza come alive on stage. Night after night was called, too much like theater for movies, while Hepburn moved her lips to a soprano singer she couldn't match. The Academy tried to fix the unfairness, giving Julie Best Actress for Mary Poppins that same year. But to her, it felt empty. Not a win, a sorry prize wrapped in politeness. She smiled through it like she always did. But her quiet said everything, and the bitter feelings didn't stop there, because another man from My Fair Lady would hurt even more. Rex Harrison, the ego that overshadowed Eliza. He was the star of the stage, Julie's co-star. A Broadway legend with a voice that oozed charm and pride in equal amounts. But when the cameras started rolling for the movie version of My Fair Lady, Rex Harrison apparently made it his job to keep Julie off the screen. Too innocent, too stiff. He reportedly told the director words said, not as help, but as dismissal. Like her years of playing the part meant nothing at all. Julie stayed quiet for years, until one calm afternoon in the 1990s. During tea with an old friend, she finally admitted what many had long thought: Rex didn't want me on that set. He made sure I was kept off it. To her, it wasn't just a missed chance, it was personal sabotage. She had carried Eliza through hundreds of shows, shaping her with detail, wit, and heart. And yet when it was time for the world to see her creation on the big screen, the door was slammed shut without even a thank you. Rex walked through it alone, and then came the final insult. He won the Academy Award for the part she had created, the same part she'd worn out her vocal cords perfecting night after night, as he stood on that Oscar stage soaking up the clapping and giving his acceptance speech. Julie sat at home, watching in silence. The recognition she deserved handed to someone else years later at a theater reunion in 1982. The two crossed paths. Again, she walked past him. No look, no nod, no handshake. Just a cool, practiced indifference to outsiders. It may have looked like 2 old co-workers missing each other in a crowd, but to those who knew, it was the sound of a grudge politely kept. But betrayal doesn't always come from co-stars. Sometimes it comes from the man holding the conductor's stick. Henry Mancini, when the maestro cut the melody. Julie Andrews loved music. It wasn't just a job. It was her identity, her safe place. So when she was invited to perform at a televised concert led by the legendary composer Henry Mancini in the early 1970s, she approached it with respect. Mancini was a giant known for Moon River and the Pink Panther. A dream team-up was coming at first. Everything clicked. The orchestra played. Julie's voice soared, but halfway through rehearsal that harmony broke. Mancini suddenly stopped the music. He stood, walked toward her, and said loud enough for every musician to hear, "Let's try that again." With a little less choir girl and a little more woman gasps a few uncomfortable looks. The room fell into a silence more deafening than clapping to him. It was direction to her. It was a slap across the face. Julie didn't react. Not then she offered. A polite nod, started singing again, and finished the session with perfect control. But inside, something broke that night. She left the studio quietly and never came back to work with him again. In the days that followed, she told a close friend he didn't critique the note, he critiqued me, my essence, my voice. She never publicly said bad things about him, that wasn't her way, but among her circle she called him one chilling phrase. The man who tried to rewrite my soul. She would go on to sing, for millions more. But the wound Mancini left of being made small, of being told to be less. Julie never truly healed, and she never forgot how it felt to be musically put down by a supposed master. But her next heartbreak wasn't work. It was personal. Emma Thompson, the friend who became the critic they were supposed to be, like spirits, both actresses of wit and warmth. British darlings loved by audiences across generations. Julie Andrews and Emma Thompson had met at countless industry events, always exchanging kind words, mutual admiration, and subtle nods of respect. Julie saw in Emma the kind of sharp, smart performer who could carry the torch of classic British elegance. So in 2005, when Emma Thompson began writing a remake of Nanny McPhee, Julie quietly reached out through her agent, hoping perhaps for a small part, a voice over a wink, to legacy. Something small but meaningful. Instead, what she got back was a closed door. Emma, according to a producer who was in the room, responded, "With a cold detachment, Julie's era has passed, we want something edgier." The words were delivered like a business decision, but to Julie they cut far deeper. She didn't argue, she didn't complain. She simply withdrew gracefully as always. But that night, alone in her home, she reportedly told a friend over the phone, "I suppose there's no room for manners in modern magic." She never watched Nanny McPhee, not out of spite, but because doing so would have made the rejection feel real, permanent to the industry. It was just a casting choice, nothing personal, but to Julie, it was something more. It was a message, a quiet dismissal of everything she had stood for. She once whispered to a confidant during a quiet lunch in Belgravia, "It's the ones you admire who hurt you most," and hurt came again, this time from someone who shared her musical soul. Isentru, Barbra Streisand, a duet that never was. For years fans begged for it. A duet, a collaboration between the two queens of musical cinema, Barbra Streisand and Julie Andrews. Fire and ice, raw power and refined grace. It seemed like it had to happen. Record labels floated. The idea, Variety hinted at it, even Broadway insiders whispered about it behind velvet curtains. But it never happened. Why? According to insiders, it wasn't scheduling. It wasn't logistics. It was something more cutting. Barbra Streisand reportedly once dismissed the idea privately, saying Julie was technically perfect, but emotionally distant. The comment wasn't meant for public ears, but it found its way to Julie through a trusted mutual friend, and it stung. Julie had always spoken highly of Barbra, calling her bold, brilliant, and fearless. She had defended her through the press's harshest criticisms, praised her daring musical choices, even called her a vocal phenomenon. So when that cold judgment reached her, Julie didn't respond with rage. She responded with silence. Not long after, in a rare interview, when asked if she would ever consider a duet with Barbra, she gave a quiet, calculated answer. "Some voices don't blend." That was all, but those 5 words hit like a thunderclap in the musical world. It was one of the rare moments Julie ever used language, like a dagger, measured, precise, and impossible to misinterpret. The fantasy of a Barbra Julie duet died in that moment, but even that icy note couldn't compare to the co-star who left her voiceless. Literally, Blake Edwards, the husband who cut too deep. Their love story was legendary. Julie and Blake, muse and director, husband and wife, a Hollywood romance forged in creativity and sustained by mutual admiration, or so it seemed. But in 1981, that bond was tested on the set of S.O.B., a dark comedy Blake Edwards wrote and directed. It was supposed to be a satirical jab at the industry. Instead, it became a personal minefield. The film required Julie, America's sweetheart, the practically perfect Mary Poppins, to appear topless. In a shocking scene, it was her first and only time doing so on screen. Blake insisted it was brilliant satire, a necessary subversion of her image. Julie hesitated, but she agreed, trusting the man behind the camera, who was also the man she shared her home and life with. What followed wasn't liberation. It was quiet devastation. In the months after the film's release, she privately confessed to friends that the experience had fractured her image and her marriage. The media frenzy was brutal. The public confused, her fans split, and Julie left exposed in every sense of the word. Behind closed doors, arguments with Blake simmered. It wasn't the nudity they clashed over. It was what it represented. The control, the risk, The question of who the joke was really on. She gave him her career, a close friend once said, and he gave her a script that mocked it. Julie forgave him. Time softened the edges, but the betrayal lingered, tucked beneath the surface of every interview, every red carpet, smile, every public gesture of unity. Because while the world saw a supportive partnership, Julie never forgot what it felt like to be exposed by the one person meant to protect her. And finally, the seventh name, the one she never dared say publicly. Until now, Walt Disney, the father of a dream and a disappointment he gave her. Mary Poppins, he gave her a career in Hollywood, but Walt Disney also gave her something else. Rules, restrictions, expectations. She could never quite escape. Julie adored Walt. She often spoke of his vision, his brilliance, his uncanny ability to find magic in the mundane. But behind the fairy dust and fanfare was something more complicated. He wanted her to be perfect, not just on screen, but everywhere, always smiling, always composed, always the image he had crafted. When Mary Poppins became a phenomenon, Julie hoped it would open new doors, grittier roles, deeper stories. But instead, Disney's team cautioned her, "Don't ruin the image Walt created." Suddenly, she wasn't just a performer. She was a brand. She felt trapped. The very character that launched her into stardom now chained her to an identity she couldn't shake. Every studio that called wanted Poppins, not Julie. Every producer expected sweetness, not strength. She tried to push the boundaries, to evolve, but each attempt was met with resistance, soft rejections, subtle reminders of who she was meant to be. In a rare, unguarded moment, she confided to a friend over lunch in the English countryside, "Walt gave me wings, but only if I agreed to stay in the cage." It wasn't hatred that she carried toward him. It was something sadder, more enduring. It was heartbreak, and it marked the beginning of her long, quiet rebellion. The sound of truth. Julie Andrews never screamed into a microphone. She never tweeted, leaked, or lashed out, but at 89, she's letting the truth out. Not in bitterness, but in peace. She was polite until she was ignored. She was kind until she was dismissed. She was graceful even as the world tried to diminish her. 7 names. 7 moments that chipped away at the perfect porcelain image the world demanded from her. But behind that image was something stronger, steel. Because Julie Andrews didn't just survive these betrayals, she sang through them, and now she's finally being heard.